6 of us agreed that, yeah, we could do this. We came up with the protocols, very strict protocols. We all adhered to those protocols, and that's what kind of, there's another level to this as far as we're not doing this for profit. I mean, this really is to showcase Lodi and the Lodi appellation. So, yeah, there were those risks involved, and I have to say, it's evolved, and we've gotten some really good results out of it. So I'm real happy with what's taking place.
Awesome. And Chad, the wine in this lineup that you were involved in was with the Maley brothers, and it's this one right here that we're starting with. And can you tell us about the We Got Vineyard, which is where this is all from, the same one vineyard, kind of on the west side of the Lodi appellation? That's right.
Yeah, we've got the We Got Vineyard, which is over on the west side of the appellation. It's in a little more of a loamy sand. It's a vineyard planted in 1958. It was rooted on St. George rootstock, and it was the Maley family. The We Get name comes from a dairy that was there, but it was really the Maley family that planted this vineyard and got this vineyard established. I love it. It's typical west side, old Lodi, old line Zin. It's got that earthy, loamy flavor. It's got some weedy, wild berry kind of character, but it's very typical for what you'll see out of the west side. Another vineyard you'll probably go to is a Susie vineyard, which is made by M2, Lane Montgomery, and that vineyard is visually close by to the We Got and very similar fruit characteristics.
And you said a dairy was on this property, and I guess in the best sense, those Lodi west side Zins kind of pick up that.
There's kind of, there is. You've got that, the dank or we'll call it earthy. Earthy, natural.
Mushroom.
Yeah, but it's character. I mean, it's like, love it or leave it. But it's a distinct character that you get year after year, and it's what defines this area, which is great. It's good to capture that. Yeah.
And we could talk about the Susie Vineyard, which is right here. And this is is this the M2?
This is the M2 Susie Vineyard. Kevin Susie is the grower. Lane Montgomery is the winemaker. Another old vineyard. I'm not exactly sure on the exact age, but I think it's approaching 100 years if I'm not mistaken. So it's a lot of winemakers make wine from it. It's, to me, a little more concentrated, a little more fruit forward, but just a beautiful vineyard that's very typical west side of that.
And an old vine Zinfandel, that is an actual designation. It has to be a certain age before it can be labeled old vine. Is that true?
I think that's a little, and I don't know if there's a TTB legal definition, so it's pretty broad. I like to think of old vine vineyard as being older than 50 years old.
That's kind of what I've heard too.
Yeah, and you get the word heritage. There's a lot of different interpretations. Zap, Zinfandel Advocate Producers, they've got kind of a more, you go on their website and they'll have more information on what really defines these definitions that we put on them. But I think 50-year-old vineyard and head trained is a good, important quality for these old vines. That is typically what we're after.
I just turned 50 a few months ago, so I think old vine should be 65 now. And then when I'm 65, I think it should be older.
I think you can go with that. Yeah, that works.
All right. Yeah. Next in the lineup, we're kind of working from west to east as we go through here, the appellation. So this is the Trulux Vineyard product.
Right.
And who makes this?
So this is made by Michael McKay, Cellars. He's done really well with this. This comes from Keith Watts. Watts family is the grower on this vineyard. Michael's done a really good job over the years. He's done the native fermentations as part of his winemaking protocol. So it's kind of typical to a degree of kind of what you get with his standard commercial product. But this is another great vineyard that it shows really focused, bright fruit, real distinct. I don't think it has as much of the earthy quality, but there's that distinct kind of loamy flavor that you get in there that you get from this vineyard.
A little bit of that loam in there, but more fruit forward. So as we kind of move from west to east, as Chad's describing these wines, the characteristics definitely change, which is so interesting when you're talking about generally an area that is not that big, but the differences in the terroir, which all plays a part in taking the flavor of the wine, is quite striking.
absolutely. And that's, that's kind of the point of the project.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is in this area, you've got the Mokelumne River, and these are all alluvial deposits. So as you move more east, you probably end up with more of the cobble, sandier soils, and you have these little fingers of real sandy, probably old tributaries or floodplains of the Mokelumne River. So you get a little distinction within that. And there's a sub-AVA within Lodi called the Mokelumne River AVA. A lot of these wines fall into that AVA.
That sub-AVA.
Right.
Marissa's Vineyard, this is made by?
This is made by our friends over at I've got Stuart Spencer is the name, it's Saint Amand is the winery.
Right, Saint Amand.
Yeah, and this is a vineyard that is grown by the Morfry vineyards. They manage this block. And another 100-year plus, if I'm not mistaken, vineyard. Saint Amand's made this vineyard for many years. It's a great vineyard, and it's more central kind of Lodi type of location, and it's always been a real consistent kind of fruit bomb, kind of jammy, kind of a nice flavor, but restrained, elegant Zinfandel style.
And so it's a more restrained, elegant Zinfandel, and the Noma Ranch.
Noma Ranch is, so now you're moving a little more, you're just east of 99. This is an old vineyard that is made by Makia, Tim Holdener, and it is a dry farm, very concentrated, early ripening, higher acid. That to me is the fruit bomb of the bunch, but it's a real distinct, nice, it's a good example. A lot of times people fault Lodi or fault the Central Valley for not having the acids. I think you'll see on all these wines, they do have the nice structure, and the acid composition is a part of that structure component.
Makia is one of my personal favorites. I just think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Finally, the Century Block Vineyard?
Century Block Vineyard, this comes from our friends over at Fields Family Winery, Ryan Sherman, and his partner Russ Fields. This was an old 3-acre, if I'm not mistaken, block of vines stuck in the middle of a salad of other vineyards that they made. They were able to make it this one year. It is another elegant, restrained, focused, bright example of more of a West Side Lodi Zinfandel.
Fantastic. So these wines, you can buy them at the Lodi Wine Visitor Center on Turner Road. I don't know if you can buy them at the individual wineries.
Yeah, some of the wineries I think are approaching being sold out. I think that you can go into the individual wine tasting rooms and ask them about them, and they should have them. And then we should be doing another vintage with 2013 to follow this up.
Outstanding.
Yeah, so that will continue the project, and we're talking about adding more people, growing the group. We put invitations out again to people, and we've got really good reception, so it's exciting.
For you as a winemaker, the constant challenge every year, every vintage presents different challenges.
Right.
How rewarding was this for you?
Yeah, it was really rewarding because it allowed me to not have the expectations of my influence. I really could just sit back and say, this is, probably the most important decision I had was when to pick it. Because we didn't add anything, we didn't do anything, and we did our typical handling it as gentle as possible in the winery. So it was really nice to sit back and say, hey, this is really up to Mother Nature, and we're going to get what she gave us. And so that was really rewarding. It's kind of humbling. It kind of brings you back into the reason why you got into the business. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really great experience.
Great. We'll take advantage of all that Lodi has to offer. The wineries are sensational. Great people like Chad Joseph. If you go to Harney Lane, or if you're here at McCormick Williamson or at Maley Brothers, you're likely to see him. You're always present and always around promoting Lodi. You do such a great job, Chad. What a pleasure to be with you.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you and your viewers, and enjoy Lodi wine.
All right. Thank you for viewing.